Okay, well, I haven't done a address per se in a while, so I figured I would just, I felt motivated, so I figured I'd just jump in and talk about what's going on in my life right now. Of course, the big thing, as you may know if you've been following my latest videos that have appeared and deleted and reappeared or whatever, is the PRE table. Or I guess I'm supposed to not call it the PRE table. I got a long letter from the Paul Solomon Foundation uh, pointing out that they owned the copyright to the term PRE table, and also there was a company that did make them in the past, and they didn't know if that company was still in existence, that owned some kind of rights to something, and I agreed with pretty much what they said. And it reminded me that when I started reading the readings about the PRE table uh, initially, and as I got into them, I'm trying to kind of piece things together because I don't have the initial readings. You know, they're releasing the readings in reverse order, and it seems like even the ones they have about the PRE table in that section devoted to it at the end of each volume of the Paul Solomon readings, it seems like the information is still the fairly recent readings. So I presume that back there, way back when, maybe in the early mid 80s or something, there are some readings that are kind of the beginnings of the PRE table readings and how it came about. But I don't have those, haven't read those, so I'm just trying to infer. But it does seem like the term PRE table was cooked up as part of an effort to establish a side company that was not associated with Paul Solomon, whose purpose was to produce and manufacture this sound therapy table that he was recommending in the readings. And it may have been around that time that the name was cooked up, the name PRE table. And if you think about it, the name Profound Relaxation Experience sounds kind of cheesy, and it doesn't really sound like something that would be characteristic of the Paul Solomon readings. I mean, of course, you know, here's a guy who decided to call himself Paul Solomon as recommended by the readings. So, and I'm not really lambasting that. It's just there you go. So I don't know. That was my impression. Not knowing the real facts, that's the impression I got. And I did find on the internet somewhere like a patent application or something for the table that was by these people, I believe, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go back and look. And also a brochure that was floating around somewhere that they had produced. At least the impression I got from that stuff was that they had the initial effort, the initial brochure, the initial material, and then poof, there was nothing. But it seems like this was in the mid 80s, before the advent of the internet for the common lay people, and so it, you know, didn't get around in the way that things get around today. So it's kind of hard to tell how much of a splash it made and how long they produced these. Or I presume they're not doing it now, because I presume that if they were, they would have some kind of web presence, you know. But anyway, so the Profound Relaxation Experience was in that literature, and it just seemed like that's kind of where it came from as part of that company. And the sound therapy table was made to do more than just induce profound relaxation. That was perhaps the first application of it he mentioned. I'm not sure. It was the main application of it he mentioned, or one of the major applications of the table that he mentioned, and one of the major therapeutic or beneficial effects of the table was its ability to facilitate the induction of a relaxed state. And you kind of got the gist from those readings that it would allow you to achieve a state of relaxation that was not possible using any other means. So it's kind of like if you had your best means of achieving a relaxed state and were really darn good at it, this could get you to a whole other level. And so hence the name, and that says is pretty applicable. I mean, the word experience, you know, that's kind of colorful, I don't know. But the reason I've been calling mine the PRE table was just, you know, I was trying to make it simple for people, and anybody who did, the few of you who may have actually read some of the Paul Solomon readings about that, or anybody who may be looking for it because they read something about it in Paul Solomon literature, that would kind of clue them in, you know. So I'll try at this point to, I don't know, use quotes when I say PRE table, or call it my sound therapy table based on the PRE table or something, I don't know, whatever. But so kind of where I'm at with the table right now is initially I got 2 transducers. One of them was bad. So then I was just using one. And it seemed pretty good with just one. I was really looking ahead to getting the other one, the replacement, and figured it would be twice as good, right? Twice as powerful. And in the meantime, I had one of the really cheap ones that I had used for testing. So I had two. I had like the really cheap one and the really expensive one, transducers. And that seemed to work pretty good. It seemed like the really cheap one kind of added a significant, almost half as much power to the whole thing, at least, down to maybe 80 hertz or something, or maybe even lower, like 60 hertz. I don't know. Didn't really analyze it too closely, but and then I got the replacement, and I don't know. It seems like about the time I got the replacement, it's like it didn't seem to add that much. I'm sure the two are not out of phase. I'm sure the polarity isn't reversed, because if the polarity is reversed, they'll actually cancel each other, and you'll have like deadness for the most part in the center of the bed and stuff, and significant reduction in level when both of them are playing together, and that's definitely not happening. I've done a lot of comparisons where I have just one playing, pull the plug on the other one, and then plug the other one in so you can feel both, then unplug this one, so it's apparent that they're in phase, that their polarity is the same, but it doesn't seem like the second one adds that much. It seems like it adds vibration down around your legs where it's at. I've got them, if you take the whole length of the bed, divide it up into thirds, at those 2 points between the thirds, that's where I have it, each transducer. And I don't know, I don't get this as much of a summing effect as I thought I would. Part of that may be due to my amplifier. As I learned more about amplifiers, I found out if you just run one channel of an amp, it can kind of suck more power from the power supply, and then when you're running both channels, they have to kind of share, so you end up not getting as much power. You don't get double the power when you run both channels versus just one. You'll get your rated power possibly, but after talking to their engineers and stuff, I'm thinking this guitar amp head is just not the thing to use, and it's not driving them the way they were intended to be driven, I guess is the way to say it. And so I'm looking forward to the point where I can afford another power amp. Initially, I wanted to just sell some stuff, like sell this amp head or sell some guitar cabinets or whatever. I got like 5 or 6 things I could sell and get way more than enough money for a power amp and probably another couple transducers or something. But I didn't do that immediately because, Ross Peterson says patience is pure energy. And I keep beating the people over the head with that. I always say that. Patience is pure energy. And so I'm trying to, I stopped a second. I'm like, wait, it feels like I'm being impatient. So what would be the patient approach, And so I've tried to just say, okay, no, I'll just wait, see how things unfold. I've got my friend John Teagan coming over who's into guitar and stuff, and I at least want to, I know he'll want to listen to this guitar amp and stuff, and I don't know, it just seemed like there's some changes I know coming along in the pipeline. I've got John Teagan come to visit, my friend Jeff Shannon coming to visit. Both of them are interested in the table and have ideas about it and stuff, and they're probably 2 of my friends that are the most non-critical of the process of deep trance meditation readings, psychic readings and stuff. In fact, not only are they non-critical, I think both of them are quite interested. Well, I know both of them are quite interested in those phenomenon processes and other things that are kind of esoteric or paranormal or whatever. So it's going to be really interesting. Both of them just happen. They don't even know that they don't know each other are coming, but they're both kind of converging on my place at once. So I'm reading about the law of attraction, the readings of Abraham. I'm going to talk about that. But and it seems like I can sense this. I'm spending all this mental energy focused on the PRE table, and I'm like attracting these people that are interested in it already and stuff. But they're both, both those friends are guitar people, and they're interested in the PRE table, and they'll have input, and so I know it seemed like, it felt like to me it was just the time to wait. But soon I do plan on getting the one power amp that was recommended by the Clark Synthesis engineers. I'll probably post a link to that here too. It was the Samson Servo 300 stereo power amp. And in fact, it was a power amp that was already in my Amazon.com cart to buy, because I had done a lot of research looking for amps that had exactly the right wattage that they recommend, 150 watts per channel into 4 ohms. And I wanted one that could power 2 of them. And there aren't very many amps that offer exactly 150 watts per channel into 4 ohms as a stereo, stereo configuration. So it's not too surprising, but it was interesting. It was the exact same amp that they recommend. They said that many people have used it and they have good experience with it. And hold on, my watch just beeped. Every time my watch beeps, I do 3 things. Number 1, I look at my hands to make sure I'm awake. And this is from, what was his name? Reese Jones, one of the guys I'm subscribed to. It's one of his techniques for discovering that you are lucid, that you're dreaming and turning your dream lucid. Because if you get in this habit of hearing the beep and checking your hands to see if you're awake, he says that when you're dreaming, your hands always look weird, or very often, so that's like a clue. So presumably when I'm asleep, if I hear my watch beep, I keep it by my head, then I will do the same thing, because I'm in the habit of it. Every single time it beeps, I look at my hands to do this check, and then that'll hopefully be something that will trigger a lucid dream. And I don't have any recall of that happening yet in my dreams, but I've been really lazy about writing them down. I keep getting into it a little bit and falling out. But one of these days, I'm going to get really organized. I could just kick myself. Back in like '98, I was super organized. I'd get up. I had this perfect routine. Of course, I didn't have kids or any distractions or anything back then. But I would get up, get on the computer, type out my dream, and it got so I was typing more and more and more. And I guess part of the time I was writing and stuff too. But I remember it got to the point where I would remember like 5 or 6 dreams back, and there would just be so much detail, I just couldn't write it fast enough. It would just come flooding through, and I'd have pages and pages and pages of stuff every night. I want to get back to that point, because I know I can do it, and then if I am doing any lucid dreaming or out-of-body stuff, then I'll know. I'll catch it, presumably. But anyway, I'm still doing that, keeping that as part of my routine. But the other 2 things I do when I hear my watch beep is other things I've read have, like, number 1, Paul Solomon, or Douglas Cottrell. I got this reading from Douglas Cottrell, and I asked him to tell me a simple change I could make in my life that would make me happier. And he said, the practice of gratitude. To stop for a moment every now and then and just realize how grateful I am for whatever, things in my experience. And so that's one of the things I do. I hear my watch beep, I'll say I'm, to myself, I'll just remind myself I'm eternally grateful for everything in my experience. Or if there's something specific, I'm really grateful for this or that's happening at that point in my life where I'm thinking about. Then the third thing I do when I watch beeps, and this was from, I think it was an astral projection book I got in the library that I wasn't too impressed with. Oh, what was the guy's name? I can't remember. I'll try to find the title and the author. I wasn't too impressed with it, but he had some cool techniques he had gleaned from various places, and one of them was this thing about fear, getting rid of fear, because he's trying to help people that might be afraid to enter the astral projection experience. And he had this idea where, every hour or something on regular intervals, you stop yourself and give yourself some affirmation regarding fear. And so I guess what I typically do is I'll do something like, I'm an immortal spiritual being and have absolutely nothing to fear. That's what I tell myself most commonly. Or sometimes I'll be like, I release my fear. I am fearless, full of positive energy. I try to turn it to something positive instead of just saying it as a negative, saying I don't fear. I don't want to say that in a negative tense because I don't like that kind of thinking. I try to keep things and figure out how to state them in a positive way. Like I am fearless, kind of a way to do it, I guess, or something. Or I'm full of courage and optimism or something, whatever you would think would be the opposite of fear, happiness, joy. But anyway, so those are the 3 things I do. And if I hear my watch beep every hour, I'm doing it like every hour, waking hour of the day. And I don't know, it kind of helps. It seems like, especially the fear thing, anymore when I watch beeps, I'll just feel this like relaxation and euphoria, kind of this relief flood over me just automatically before I even get a chance to say the affirmation. And I think it's really helping, you know. So, meanwhile, back at the ranch, the table. So I'm waiting for the power amp. Right now, just trying to make do the best I can. I've got, basically now I'm using my computer as the signal processor. I was kind of leery of doing it before because I'd never really set up my computer as a real-time signal processor before, but it wasn't too hard. I got my audio interface. I got a cheap audio interface and cheap mixer. It's just what I have. And that was nice. Okay, Glory, I'll take care of it in just a minute. Ah, kids. Anyway, so I have them set up so I can play my iPod through the computer and use the effects in my digital audio program. So I have all these terrific effects, you know, basically an infinite number of EQs and limiters and compressors and you name it, you know. So that way I can basically try to find the best signal processing that will help the table the best, and try to EQ things out and give it a fairly even response throughout the low end, and isolate things, route different frequencies to my speakers, or I basically, it seems to work best if I route the full range to my little speakers there, and have the low end going maybe from 400 hertz down or 200 hertz down to the table. So I have kind of one setup that it was my old setup that works, and then the other day I was trying to try with some other things, you know, monkey with it again. So I've basically two setups I can switch between. I've tried them. If you're interested, the software I'm using is Digital Performer. I got that back in 2005 when I was going to get into music production again, because it was like at the time the cheapest software for the Mac that was still considered professional level digital audio workstation kind of software. And it's still fairly competitive now. Now that Apple has reduced the price of Logic to like $500, that's probably pretty close. But and then I'm just using some of the Masterworks plugins and some of the other effects plugins in Digital Performer. And if people are interested, I can maybe do a video on that showing exactly what I'm using and stuff with screenshots. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with the table. I'm trying lots of different kinds of music. I'm trying, for some reason, I really got into this space music type stuff, really ambient type of almost mostly noise that is slightly musical type of music that goes on and on and on. Like this is actually a 4 CD set by Steve Roach entitled Mystic Chords and Sacred Spaces, and I got the first half of it. You can buy it in halves. I got the first half to try out, which is 2 CDs, and I plan on getting the other half too because it's really good. And I've just been going through the library here in town to see what kind of, they've got a couple CDs by Steve Roach, check those out, and I'm just kind of going through the New Age section, and they have a section on relaxation, and just trying all kinds of different stuff. You know, they have everything from just plain nature sounds to all different kinds of music and things, and I'm just kind of going through those and trying them all on the table and seeing what works. I found this one CD by David Sun, which is just kind of a standard New Age thing where he plays piano, but it's like kind of a digital piano with electric piano mixed with it, and so it's got a really solid bass and stuff. It translates well to the table, and he's got a couple tracks on that CD with strings and things. You know, it's all synth, but with string type sounds. And I don't know, it's just because the way he writes or what, but I just got this really euphoric experience the first time I listened to that CD. I'm trying to find it so I can show it to you here. Yeah, it's called, the one I've got is Tranquility 2 by David Sun. I'll try to give you a link to his site. I looked him up and got his website. Now this is not the David Sun that's on Forbes 500 and the founder of Kingston Technology or something. No. This is a guy in England. But he's got a lot of stuff. He's got music that's just for healing, and he's got music made by plants where he takes like signals from plants and then puts them through signal processing and isolates things out. And I don't know, it seems really interesting. I want to try a lot of his stuff if I can get my hands on it. So that's one of the things that worked really well. The Steve Rhodes stuff, it's more kind of like noise and sound effect type stuff that's really long and drawn out. Um, okay, I'll be right in there. Just wait. The Steve Rhodes stuff on the table, I don't know. I'm still on the fence as to how it works, because the vibrations you feel are not these smooth musical vibrations. They're more like rough, like rocket engine rumble kind of things. Just because he's using lots of reverb and I don't know, white noise type things or more noise kind of things along with the music, and it does seem to induce a really solid relaxational state, but it doesn't seem to be positive or euphoric or anything. It just seems to be kind of flatline, which is interesting. That may be really useful. I'm not sure. So I've been trying it out quite a bit, trying to see how I feel about it. So yeah, that's what I've tried on the table so far. I still don't really have the vibrational level I want on the table. I've kind of backed off my amplifier a little bit because I don't want to damage these transducers before I get the power amp they recommend and get a chance to try that out. I want to give them a decent shot before I ruin them or something. But last night I started looking at a lot of the different transducers that are on the market. There's like a Sonic Innovations company that makes a thing called the I-Beam, and Rockford Fosgate, the car stereo company, they also sell an I-Beam. I think it's from the same parent company. I think they market it two different ways. And that seems to be, I looked at one video on YouTube, it seems to be really powerful, maybe even more powerful, maybe like 4 or 5 times more powerful than the one I'm using. And in a certain frequency range, it seems like it has a really strong peak around 40 hertz and kind of levels off up to about 500. But it seems like if I EQ that out, the power I would end up getting is probably about the same as what I've got now. Maybe that's what I ended up doing here with these Clark synthesis ones. For all I know, they can have frequencies they do or don't work well at, and I'm getting rid of their most powerful ones, with the EQ. So, and there are other ones like the Aura bass shakers that look really good. I'd like to try, and they're really cheap, and you can get a ton of them. Heck, I can get like 16 of those for less money than it costs for 2 of the Clark synthesis top of the line ones. And man, even if they only go down to 40 hertz, I can imagine you get like 16 of those on the bed. You probably like move that bed all over the place. So, and there's some other ones. There's the butt kicker, and I looked at those, and those are kind of a different design. So there's at least 3 other designs other than Clark synthesis I've seen that seem to be pretty powerful and successful. There's the I-Beam, the Aura bass shaker, and the butt kicker, and I'd like to try those. Now I've also heard, initially what I read up on was the Krausen technology ones that you put underneath the legs, so they're supposed to bear the weight of whatever your load is, I guess, up to 200 pounds, and I think with the weight of my bed and a person, you could almost do that. It could handle that, but I'd have to get rid of my isolation feet and stuff, and I don't know if I'll end up trying those, but I think, to be fair, if I have the money, would be to get some of each of those different kinds and try them out. And then when I'm done, if I can't just return them and sell them on eBay or something, the ones I don't like. But it could be that I'll end up with a combination of 3 or 4 different kinds that work together well. I have no idea. It seems like such a complicated field because none of them are just like super powerful across an entire spread from like 500 hertz down to 0. They all seem to have like some places where they're stronger, and then other places they work okay within the frequency spectrum. But it also seems like they could be off by factors of 10 as far as from each other, as far as power levels are concerned. And I've read some reviews where the guys are like, yeah, the Clark synthesis ones aren't even as close, they're not even close to like the Aura bass shakers. So I don't know, the specs there's no like uniform standard kind of specs. They all list, if they list the power of the things at all in any kind of rational fashion, it's all a different format, and I can't really seem to be able to convert or compare anything as far as specs is concerned. So I'm just basically going by hearsay, and to be fair, and to really find the best solution available for the PRE table, or for this table inspired by the PRE table I'm building, or enhanced version, or whatever you want to call it, I think, to be fair, I should really try all of them. So I'm going to try to think about how I can do that and how I can get amplifiers that could handle all of them, or maybe one really strong amplifier that could handle any of them, or something like that, and just try to figure out how I'm going to make it work to test them all. I mean, and I've talked to my friend John Teagan already about using completely different things. You know, it's like, just because Paul Solomon recommended a water mattress over the bed, maybe we could do better. You know, what if we tried an air mattress? What if we tried, you know, just a board with cushions on it or something? Or you know, there's just all kinds of different stuff we could try. And you know, what if we just use conventional loudspeakers, like get some 2,000 watt dual 18-inch sub cabinets for live sound, or I saw this 21-inch Sirwin Vega sub cabinet. You know, they have a bent horn version and they've got a regular. And, you know, get stuff that people would hear over half the city if you turn it up, but then you'll definitely be able to get the level you want. You know, you have like 4,000 watt amps to drive them and stuff. I don't know. So there's lots of things we could try, and if we really knew what we were doing, we could probably start to build things that would be a better type of actuator or transducer than what's available in the market. I don't know. So who knows? Maybe I'll hook up with people that are engineers and end up actually doing that or something. But before I get too distracted, I'm going to grab that book by that I'm reading. Yeah. Because one of my subscribers or viewers or whatever clued me in on the teachings of Abraham as channeled by Esther Hicks. It's by Esther and Jerry Hicks. So I guess Jerry Hicks is kind of I don't know. I think he does energy work and stuff, and she does the channeling or something. But and he helps type these up or something. I don't know. But I know he does ask questions, so he's kind of like the guy asking questions, and while she's channeling, she answers them. But just at first glance, this is the first material I've read from Esther Hicks. I haven't looked at any online videos yet. I just had so much to do, you know. It's like, and I haven't read anything else yet. And so I don't know how much this has been edited, but my gosh, this seems like to be the most solid conscious trance channeling I've ever read. It doesn't appear that she's a deep trance channel at all. It definitely seems like it's the conscious type, like most of the channels do. And, you know, kind of like the Sanaya Rowan, Dwayne Packer, Oren Dalvin type channeling, Betty White from the Betty book type channeling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it seems to be so solid and so... It seems to be the most like... It's like the conscious channeling that's the most like deep trance channeling that I've ever read. Just incredible stuff. And the content, man, he lays out the law of attraction in a way that nobody else does. I mean, but it's the same kind of thing. It's the same kind of thing you get from New Thought, you get from Paul Solomon, Edgar Casey, Douglas Cottrell, Bashar, you name it. They're all talking about the same thing, obviously, but from different angles. And it seems like the angle that this Abraham entity or collection of entities portrays the information from is a very successful angle at communicating the essence of this that applies to us. You know, what's most important from our perspective. And it's unique. It's not really just the same old stuff. It's portrayed in a way that is so applicable and so down to earth. It sets it apart from just about anything else I've read. And it's not like I noticed something was missing when I read the other portrayals, but man, when you read this, it's like you kind of get it in a way that you can apply immediately. And I feel like I'm already doing it, but now it feels like kind of the calm before the storm. I'm just kind of soaking in the information, and I really feel like I've got these tools, and I'm equipped with tools that I can really positively change the reality around me with, that are way more powerful than anything I've ever had, just from tapping into this one book, you know. So, and they have several other books out and stuff. This one is supposed to be kind of the, I think it's kind of the summary or synopsis. Is kind of like the boiled down essence of the essential teachings of Abraham regarding the laws of attraction. The law of attraction, that seems to be kind of their core thing. Everything else is kind of an offshoot of that. but fantastic stuff. I'm just more than impressed with it. I'm just bowled over, if that's the right term. But so that's really good. And another thing, I think it's a different reader or viewer, another one of my viewers recommended. Got a couple, 3, 4 of his books. Here we go. Robert Bruce. I don't know why he chose that name. I'm pretty sure it's not his regular. Well, maybe it is his regular name. I don't know. Not to be confused with Robert the Bruce from Scottish history. But this is Astral Dynamics by Robert Bruce. I've also got the ebook version. This is like the second edition. It's really reworked and has 20 more years of insight and information, or 10 more years or something. And it's kind of really a different book. The first one is available for free on his website. I'll try to get a link to that or something. And then he's got, this is another one of his books, Mastering Astral Projection. And it's like a 90-day guide to out-of-body experience. Robert Bruce with Brian Mercer. And they use, for the Hemisync stuff, they use Brainwave Generator, which was a shareware thing for PC way back in the day, and seems like it really hasn't been supported much since 2004. Nowadays, a friend of mine, Jeff Shannon, the guy that's also into this, he pointed out to me that there is a program called Gnarl that's free as part of the GNU public license stuff. So it's a GPL software, and it works pretty good. It's available for Mac and PC and everything. So I'm trying out the Mac version of that, and haven't tried it too extensively. Just dinked around with it a little bit. It seems really good. And it's free, so you can't beat that. For people like me that are like super poor. But anyway, so Robert Bruce, I don't know, he's kind of the guy that I felt like I was going up and up and up with finding better and better people about out-of-body experience, astral projection type stuff. And then I got to Robert Bruce, and he seemed to be way beyond, like super, and explain things way better. But I don't know, that's when I kind of got burned out. Maybe I felt like there was just too much, and I got this 90-day course, and I want to like be able to have the time to devote to it and start it all over, and I don't know, the stuff I was doing with William Buhlman just didn't seem to help. I had like one of his affirmations. I'd even recorded them and was playing it over and over again, and I had this whole session that went through the night where it would play affirmations, and at a certain point it would wake me up and go through one of his routines and then go back to the affirmations, and I don't know, it just didn't seem to work that well for me. It seemed like I was just getting galvanized to it, and it wasn't effective at all. But like Robert Bruce, this picture is apparently can't see it very well, the lighting isn't good, an artist's rendition of one of the barriers, I think, between different dimensions, the astral plane or something. I mean, boy, Robert Bruce really gets into concrete stuff. He seems really analytical. William Buhlman was cool because he was really analytical, and it seems like Buhlman, these guys are seem like pioneers of astral projection and stuff. It seems like Buhlman kind of discovered, you can travel between dimensions when you're astral projection, because it seemed like most people would go to the astral plane and just kind of stay there, and it's kind of like that's all they would do, and that was astral projection, right? Well, and then Buhlman seems to have discovered fairly early on that he could go, like raise my or higher vibration now, and boom, he would be in a different dimension. And he could go higher vibration now, and boom, he'd be in a different day. And he could keep going higher and higher to this just insanely, till he gets to these dimensions where things are like, pure spirit and pure energy, and it's just, you read Buhlman's accounts, it's just fascinating, and you get the impression it's like, so this guy has discovered, it's like, here's what most people thought it was astral projection, and Buhlman discovered this whole other dimension to it, and from reading Urantia and things, it seems like Buellman was able to go way beyond to levels that we shouldn't even be able to attain evolutionarily for a long time. It's like just by the power of thought and demanding it, he could, by affirmation, he could just go there, at least to visit for a little bit, and then come back, have great experiences, and come back. And that raised a whole bunch of questions like, oh my God, we can explore all this now? We can explore things now that are just, it's almost like the whole universe was like open to us to at least come and visit. And the Urantia book did say that, even though you won't be able to achieve these levels, you can go visit them. Almost, you can go visit levels way beyond where you're at, just as a visitor, and people apparently, according to Urantia, do that all the time, entities. But then, okay, so that was William Buellman. Then I got into Robert Bruce here, and Robert Bruce was like, he's like, okay, you think that there's just one you, that there's just one consciousness going on, but that's not true. And actually, there's a bunch of them, and they're all going on simultaneously, and your consciousness switches between them, or more like your recollection switches between them when it comes back and gets boiled into your brain after a projection experience. And it seems super complicated, but it explained things. Okay? So when I first started doing this stuff, inspired by William Buellman, I had an out-of-body experience. It's the one and only I've had so far. And it wasn't really from following any of his affirmations or anything. It just sort of happened. But they say, in these books, they say that's what will happen, just because you're focused on it and you're thinking about it. And if you understand the law of attraction, well, sure, you're attracting that type of experience just by your focus. And sure enough, one night, from what I recall, I woke up in the middle of the night and really felt these strong vibrational type experiences, the energy, kind of like they say, and it was several notches up from anything I'd experienced before, and I really felt like, hey, it's happening, so I really tried to let it happen and go with it. And then it seems like I lost consciousness, and then, I may have used the affirmation, now I'm out of body, now I'm out of body, or something, but it seems like I lost consciousness, and then I wake up and I kind of know I'm out of body. And so the first thing I try, but I'm still laying there with my body, so the first thing I try is the rolling method, which is, a lot of them say it's like the easiest way to get out. And so that's what I did. I like rocked back and forth, and maybe I think the thing that clued me is I held my hands up, and I knew that my hands were still laying down, but my astral hands were held up. That might have been the thing that clued me. But anyway, so I start rocking back and forth and roll over to my right side, roll out of bed, and roll onto the floor, and caught myself. It seems like I landed on the floor really heavy, and it was hard to push myself up. And at the time, I had forgotten, right when I wrote this down, when I woke up, I had forgotten either, or I hadn't even read this part yet, where they say that initially you will feel very heavy, because you haven't gotten used to elevating your rate of vibration or whatever, or your rate of vibration is so close to the physical or something. I can't remember the explanations they try to give for it. But apparently that's common, but that's exactly what I felt like. I felt really heavy, and at the time I thought it was odd. I thought, oh, I can't be astral projecting because I should be floating. I should be really light, and I felt so heavy. But I knew, I could kind of see my body over there, and I knew this whole thing had just happened, so I knew that it was supposed to be real. So I was like, okay, if this is real, I should be able to do the stuff. So I was like, door. I said door, and immediately I was at the door of my bedroom, and then I was like, living room, and immediately I was there. And at this time, my wife was laying on the couch, and she does that a lot. She'll be like studying and watching TV and fall asleep, and she'll be laying on the couch. And so there she was, and I decided to like hover, so I'm hovering on the ceiling, floating, and looking down at her on the couch, and her head was towards our coffee table, which was kind of backwards from the way I thought she had been, but a lot of times she laid that way, and that was the way I saw her. And then, then some weird events started to happen. I can't remember what happened exactly, what order, but my daughter came out of our room. At that time, we didn't have like enough bedroom space, and she had her bed set up on the far side of our room, so she was like in the same room. But she came out of the room and saw me and saw Mom, and she just started like, it was kind of like this was normal to her, and I think our cat was there, and she was like playing with the cat, and then she was like standing by where mommy's head is by headboard, just like talking to mommy or something. Mommy. My wife. I'm slipping into the kid perspective here. But, and and I was like tickling her, you know, just to make her laugh, and she started to giggle a little bit, but didn't like look straight at me. And the whole thing was kind of weird because I got the sense that these were energy bodies. These weren't, and I hadn't really read about things at that point. I mean, I kind of knew that I had read some accounts that, like from Charles Leadbeater and stuff about thought forms that our astral body or something kind of hovered around the regular body during sleep. But I don't know, the experience just seemed different from what I had expected. And as I read things later, things seemed to fall in place more. But at the time, so there I am, and there's the three of us in that room, and I can hear shouting from the bedroom, and suddenly I realize it's me. I can hear myself in the bedroom shouting, and I'm cussing up a storm, like I'm really mad about something. And I think it's because Glory got up out of bed. You know, she's supposed to like stay in bed and stay asleep, you know, and so she gets up. Then I was like mad and yelling apparently because she had gotten up. But what was weird, and this whole thing didn't really hit me at the time, it's just I was just observing, you know, but what was weird is that I was aware of my own self and conscious in the living room, and yet I could hear this other entity that I knew was me standing up or sitting up and shouting in the bedroom. And so that kind of struck me as odd, you know, and then when I got back later, I was still laying down in the same, I was kind of laying on my side. You know, I'll get into why, but I had every reason to believe I had not changed position at all, had not even sat up or anything. So I'm pretty sure I wasn't physically sitting up and shouting. But then that was like, wait, but that would mean there was the self that was projecting, there was this other self that was like still in the bedroom but separate from the physical body and also operating on its own. And then there's my physical body that's laying there asleep. It's like, what? There was three of me? And I hadn't read, at that point, I hadn't read anything to clue me into that, you know? But that was my experience, you know? And so anyway, so there I was, and all that was going on. And then all of a sudden I happened to look at my hand, and two of these fingers were like gone. It's like they were covered by a black cloth, you know, it was all kind of dark in there, so you couldn't see very well, but I just saw this. You know, imagine it was like this, you know, like that. And I was like, what? What's with those other two fingers? That's really weird. So I figured, oh, well, I'll go. It should be a good time to go back to my body anyway, because I had this experience, this first one, it's been really cool. And besides, I want to go back and check and see what's up with those two fingers. So I instantly go back to my body, wake up, and sure enough, I'm laying on those two fingers. You know, I have kind of my head laying, so it's on those two fingers, and they're kind of falling asleep. And so that was it. Then I woke up. I realized I was laying in the same position. I hadn't moved at all. I'd been laying on them the whole time. And so then I go into the bedroom, and so I look over. My daughter's still sleeping in her bed. Hasn't moved. Hasn't woken up, apparently. Go into the bedroom, or the living room, or my wife's asleep on the couch, and she's actually still asleep. Didn't wake up at all. And in fact, her head is on the other side of the couch. That night, she was laying the other way, but it seemed like her astral body was the way she usually laid down, which kind of makes sense if you read the literature, but at the time it seemed pretty strange. But anyway, so that was my one and only experience. And Buellman claims that the stuff that's easiest to remember are the short projections. And Buellman claims that a lot of people do a lot of projecting, but the key is they don't remember. So the key isn't really learning how to project, it's learning how to remember your astral projections. But Buellman also gets into this whole thing with multiple, it's not like multiple personalities, it's like multiple energy bodies. And his view at this point, I think, is that, you know, there's this whole series of different dimensions, and we simultaneously exist in all of them. But those parts of us that exist in each one of those dimensions are independent, and they think independently, have their independent consciousness. And he claims that what you're doing when you remember an astral projection is your memory it's like the conscious memory from the astral body that's doing the projection is getting recollected, or is well, it's a familiar concept. You know how you wake up from your dreams and you forget them, and so that's why when you wake up to remember your dreams right away, you have to write them down. And if you just sit and think about them right when you wake up, you'll start to remember them. So it's kind of like somebody else was remembering them, or you were a different type of entity, like you were all spirit when you were experiencing them, and none of that got imprinted in your physical memory. So it's kind of like you have, while you're kind of still in between, you have to run over it and review it so that it gets kind of imprinted in your physical memory, so then you can remember it as part of your conscious memory. He claims that it's not just that, it's that you've got several different conscious memories from these different dimensional selves that can be, that were going on at the same time, and depending on how those memories get reincorporated into the conscious memory, when you're going over them, you'll remember weird things or different things. And if the conscious memory of the astral projecting self, if that gets reincorporated into your physical memory when you wake up and write things down, then that's you'll remember. You'll remember an astral projection experience. But he started to investigate this whole thing because he had some things like I did, where it clued him in that there were different parts of himself that were conscious, and he started to deliberately investigate it. And Buhlman is an engineer. Robert Bruce is a scientist, man, and he just went to town, deliberately thinking up things he could try to test this out. And he's got this one example. I think it's his main example of this whole thing, to demonstrate it and to demonstrate his experimentation. And it's my favorite. It's like, so see if I can remember it correctly. So it was like during this lightning storm, he did a lot of astral projecting while meditating. So he would start in his meditation. He's sitting in a chair meditating, and then he starts to astral project. He turns around, sees his body in the chair meditating, and goes and leaves. Goes and sits on top of his house in the storm, and just goes and flies up to the clouds and flies back and does all this stuff. And then comes back and sees himself in the chair, but it's not just him meditating physically. See, he talks about this etheric body that kind of stays with your body, but it's operative in some other energetic level than the conscious. And so he sees this etheric body sitting in the chair looking at him, and their eyes meet, and it's like these two conscious parts of himself in different dimensions that are looking at each other. And then it gets to be a really weird experience. He has trouble getting out of it. Just hold on, Daddy will be right in there. Okay, well, I'll be right in. You just wait, okay? So, but that's not all of it. So that's the account, that's the memory from his astral projecting self. Then he got the memory from his etheric body. He remembered sitting in the chair the whole time. He remembered, looking around the room, and he practiced looking around 360 degrees, turning his head all the way around. So it's kind of like he discovered that his etheric body, although it couldn't really leave the confines of his body, it could turn around and look all over the place and stuff, which was strange. And while his physical body was just sitting there meditating, looking straight ahead, or with their eyes closed, But then he remembers seeing somebody come through the ceiling, like half a form come through the ceiling, and then he sees somebody that was astral projecting. He's like, oh, somebody that's projecting is coming into the room. Then he realizes it's himself. And then their eyes meet, and from his end, he experiences this weird kind of interlock thing, and they have trouble getting out of it, and it's like sapping their energy, and he explains it. It's really weird. But eventually one of them figures out how to look away and not look at the other one, and they break it off, and then the astral self, I think, goes off and then comes back later or something, I can't remember. But the whole point is, he ended up having two concurrent lines of conscious memory of the same event going on at once. He remembered both of them, was able to write them both down, and not only were they two parallel memories going on at the same time, they were memories of the same event when he was looking at himself from both perspectives. He remembers it from the perspective of the guy sitting in the chair. He remembers it from the perspective of the astral projecting self coming in. And I mean, I can't think of a better demonstration of the reality of our multidimensional selves and that they do have independent consciousness than that. And that really just starts to open the whole thing up. It's like, well, then of course. And then when Douglas Cottrell says you can view your past lives as all happening simultaneously, as well as just sequentially, well, then you can say, well, of course, that would be a similar thing. You know, you have different, you can view each different lifetime as a different dimension, and you have a different consciousness, independent consciousness in each one of those, just like you have an independent consciousness in these various dimensions. And I don't know, from the perspective of having an independent higher self, or the way the Urantia book puts it, the thought adjuster, and being kind of a dual consciousness being, it all starts to fall into place. You know, you can see how it all starts to make things start to make more sense than they've ever made. And more than that, it explained my personal experience, which at the time I did not anticipate, did not expect, but I had this experience of hearing myself in the other room. So experiencing like 3 different selves, like the sleeping physical self, myself in the other room, which could have been, I guess, the etheric body shouting in the other room, and then my astral projecting self, experiencing all those at once, and being kind of puzzled by it, explains that. You know, so for me, it's like, I'm convinced he's the real McCoy and has lots of valuable stuff to offer. It's just, I don't know, I kind of got burned out on the whole thing and haven't gotten back into it yet. But I'm looking to get locked into a new routine here. I'll kind of decide what thing what thing I really want to focus on and try to really do that, and without adding a whole bunch of things at once. And for now, of course, yeah, I've got this PRE table going on. That's a major focus. But yeah, so that's what's going on in my life right now. That's the main thing I've discovered with, you know, the channeling material by Esther Hicks, Esther Hicks channeling Abraham, and then Robert Bruce with Astral Dynamics and stuff. And Bruce has got this huge website. One thing that turns me off with Robert Bruce is it's like he's trying to sell you something. He's really into this like sales pitch type stuff, and you'll automatically, you go to his site and download the free ebook, and you'll get on this mailing list and get lambasted with this, you know, new automated email message every day. It's like insanely long, and he keeps trying to get you to sign up for his $500. You know, not only does he have the books you can buy, you can get this course where you get like individualized attention from him and stuff. And I'm sure it's great, but you know, no, I don't think $500 is too pricey. I mean, heck, Paul Solomon charges $500 just for a reading, you know. So, but still, it kind of turns me off that he's really trying to sell you on it. And I think that's just his approach, and that's just the way he is. For whatever reason, he feels like he has to push it in your face and shove it on you. And to me, that's kind of a turnoff, but I'm convinced he's got some really valuable stuff, and I'm looking forward to trying this 90-day course in the book, and just lots of good stuff on the horizon. So that's what's going on right now, and thought I'd drop in and let everybody know, and you know, keep up the good work, carry on. I notice I'm getting new subscribers all the time, and I try to check out your pages, and it looks like there's just a ton of terrific stuff out there, and I'm really encouraged. It's kind of like we got this miniature community of people that are interested in the same type of thing going on. So by all means, keep up the good work, and I'll try to do the same and keep sharing things as I run across them.